Okay. Okay. So now the meeting is being recorded. So, anyways, we felt like this was a something that we wanted to do for our parents, and hopefully some of your students are also attending this. Because we wanted to just get really clear about the changes that have come about for the class of 2028 and more changes for the class of 2029 and beyond. So that's your, your 10th graders and ninth grade students. So with the 10th grade students, the class of 2028, ECA has raised our graduation requirements, the actual number. APS requires 25, and we have raised ours to 30. And we did this as a leadership decision because we found that our seniors, they just didn't have a whole lot to do, and not necessarily that that's a bad thing, but we could see aspects of it that weren't really healthy, just disengagement from the community. And then the more they were disengaged, we would see grades dropping, and they start not coming to advisory and this and that. And we're like, we're early college academy. Like, we should be able to keep our students engaged for all 4 years, doing things that are, in preparation for career in college. So that's where the decision came about for the class of 2028. And then, of course, moving on, any classes behind that, including the class of 2029. But there are also state requirements now that have changed for the class of 2029. So that's kind of what we're going to go over. I think we'll kind of do parking lot questions. If you have questions, you can pop them in the chat, and we will try to get to those, or will get to those questions. Sorry, I'm letting people in at the same time. We'll get to those questions at the end. So we have a chart here. We just want to kind of dig in, showing ECA graduation requirements. All right, someone else is trying to get in here. 1 second. Okay, showing ECA graduation requirements, and what has changed for both classes is the total at the bottom is 30, where you're going to see, if you have any other kids in other APS schools, that their total requirement is 25. But then you'll also see things are pretty similar until you get to the social studies requirement for the class of 2029 for our current freshmen. They have increased the social study requirement to 4 instead of 3.5, which maybe doesn't sound that significant, but we actually started the beginning of the school year without a path, not ECA, but APS to their schools, without a direct path for graduation for the class of 2029. So you bet that ECA has been very vocal in wanting to get that figured out, and to also offer what we have at CEC to be able to satisfy that extra requirement for social studies, because they had taken away the class of 2029 currently does not have New Mexico history. So then that leaves you scratching your head of, well, okay, how are they going to get this 4th social studies credit? So we've been very vocal, and we're able to actually come up with some solutions that the district has adopted. And so we're really proud of that. And we'll get into that in a little bit about how some of our incredible CEC dual credit courses will be able to satisfy that fourth social studies credit for the current ninth graders. Notice the elective count in both of these. That's the big thing that is changing, because we're not, saying, hey, you have to have like 5 sciences now or anything like that. Those are all still, kind of standard APS. What we do differently is that we take our electives and we do break them into the modern, classical, or native languages. Those are also considered elective credits, but we require that students complete 2 of the same, simply because it's better for the acquisition of the language itself. But it also, we want to make sure that they're going to be able to satisfy a basic requirement for most out-of-state schools. Even though a lot of out-of-state schools can go up to wanting up to like 4 foreign language credits. So the 2 added with the elective count there on the bottom, that's, you're getting up to 14 elective credits, or 13.5 for the class of 2029. And so we just wanted to talk about that because, I am not in the business of forcing students to take classes. However, I did notice with our 10th grade registration process this year that we have some 10th graders that are falling short of what our typical course of study is. And they have legit, reasons, whatever I'm doing football, I do dance outside of school, I have to work, all of the things. So we felt like it was really important to go over what our typical course of study is, because this is a large elective count. And if students are getting behind, we don't want parents and students surprised in their 12th grade year that, oh my gosh, I'm like short 8 electives. How am I going to get all this done? I don't think I would let that happen, but we wanted to start now, getting this information out so that you can start having conversations with your students before registration starts in January for the following year. Again, like we were saying, one of the big changes is the social studies graduation requirement. The class of 2028 is okay. They still had New Mexico history. So, bam, 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 it's going to be very easy and sequential. They'll have world history, then they'll have US history, and then in their 12th grade year, typically they will take a class called business law, which will satisfy their economics and government credit. That's a pretty standard pathway. In the class of 2029, you see that there is no New Mexico history. The New Mexico history is actually now to be included in US history. So then it leaves you with, okay, where are they going to get this 4th social studies credit? And voila. Ta-da! So this was Miss Thomas going to her CA meetings and saying, hey, we've got to do something. We need to be able to tell our parents something like, and hey, look, these are the things that we offer at CEC. These would be great 4th year social studies credits. And these things were indeed approved. So we are happy to say that the class of 2029, they can either start taking these things, take these things in their 10th grade year. Typically, what we're going to end up doing is having our 10th graders take these in their 12th grade year. That would be typical. But if they are taken out of order because they need to, because of some scheduling conflict or whatever, we can arrange that as well. But these are CEC classes that we offer, Reel to Real, which is backed by this incredible course called The Holocaust and Human Behavior, which is quickly becoming a very popular class, because it's very, very interesting, both looking at history and human behavior. The other option is ethnic studies. And ethnic studies is this beautiful 4-course dual credit series that UNM offers. So not only when students are taking one of the ethnic studies courses, they're satisfying multiple things. They're earning an elective credit. They're satisfying the social studies needed credit that they need. And they're actually also satisfying what will be needed for general education. We know that the ethnic studies will satisfy one of the social science general ed requirements as well. So that's kind of a win-win all the way around. And then the last option would be for students to be able to take one of the Native American studies, which I think we think that you are all aware that the Native American Studies has broken off from CEC, and it's now just being done directly through Indian education. But the courses, as far as we know, are being taught next door at Albuquerque High. So if students were interested in that route, we could help them with that as well. So that's kind of a breakdown of the social studies options. We're still looking at what we think is going to be a new career pathway requirement for the class of 2029. We know that they are required to have a two-course sequence of something. It looks like if they take foreign language, that would satisfy that. We're again still trying to get complete clarity from APS with these new requirements. But not to worry, if students do indeed need to get a 2-sequence course in a career technical education pathway, we have plenty of options at CEC, and these are some of the options that are listed here. And again, students aren't required to take, all 4 digital film. They're required to take, 2 in a sequence, film 1, film 2. That type thing, or Spanish 1, Spanish 2, French 1, French 2, or a 2-course series in engineering. So that's another change for the class of 2029.
If I can just interject really quickly, sure. I want to thank Ms. Falds for helping us navigate all of the changes that we are seeing as a result of HB 171. That was the legislation that was passed in the last general session that engendered all of these changes to graduation requirements, particularly for the class of 2029, our current freshman class. It has been a really interesting journey as all districts across the state navigate this, and APS as the largest district in the state and the district that produces a significant amount of our workforce and our college-going population really tries to chart a path forward that is meaningful and that is relevant for students. What that has meant is that it has taken time. And we appreciate that our district is being thoughtful about this, but we know that our families and our students most definitely will want answers as you look at course choices for the following year. And so it's looking more and more like these last few questions will be worked out and solidified here in the next month or so as we work with the district curriculum board and district leadership to really hash out some of these final details. And we will make sure that our students and our families have all of that additional information available well before we go into pre-registration activities in January. We will talk about that timeline here in a minute, but I just wanted to make sure we kind of contextualized where all of these changes are coming from, the why of these changes, and that did happen in that last legislative session.
And if I just put a link in here, if you are curious to look at, because it's just too much to put in here, and we didn't want to bog you guys down. For the class of 2029, there is a live link in here that will take you to the NMPED website, where they sort of have a menu and some more information about the additional choices that they are offering for the class of 2029. So this was kind of the piece that I really wanted to hammer down on with our typical course of study for students to stay on track for graduation. This is also listed on our website under our graduation requirements. I think it's really awesome that we have our students, they go through the C&M process in order for them to be able to take their first dual credit college class in their 9th grade year, which is yay, it's so awesome. But because they're also trying to fit in health and personal financial literacy, there's not as many opportunities to get elective credits. So now the class of 2029 will be walking away with what I believe would be 2 elective credits from freshman seminar, 1 full credit for the dual credit class, and then half a credit for the personal financial literacy. So class of 2029 will be getting 2, but that's a long way from 14 that they need to graduate. In the class of 2028, they would not have had personal financial literacy. So then they would actually only be at 1.5 credits going into their 10th grade year, elective credits. So this is the part that I really wanted to emphasize, that we have put in our typical course of study, that students really should be taking a minimum of 4 elective credits. And we have lots of choices for that. Students can take classes through CEC. They can take classes at directly at C&M or at that point, they have to wait to the summer after 10th grade year for UNM. But at that point, CEC, C&M, or IA. And at first, students are like, whoa, what do you mean 4 electives? Like, that's going to take up all my whole schedule and whatever. And they're like, no, because most of these are dual credit classes, or if they're CEC classes, they're going to be 1 full credit in a semester. So if you're taking Japanese all year, that's 2 elective credits right there. And then if you're taking an engineering class, that's 2 full elective credits all year. So we're not asking students to, stack on like 4 elective credits. It's typically going to take up 1, class time space each semester, if you will, in order for them to get the 4 elective credits. So it's really not that hard to do. And that would be minimum, again, because then you're still looking at, 5.5, potential 6, which isn't even getting you halfway there into your junior and senior year for electives. So in the junior year, depending on how many credits, because at this point, and we'll have a slide later about summer dual credit classes. I do have students in the summer of 9th grade or summer of 10th grade who are actually taking dual credit classes at C&M. Things that they enjoy, maybe things that they want to explore for their career pathway outside of what's offered at CEC. And that's a great way to also get elective credits, and we encourage that. Free college credit, free books still over the summer. And so that's why that minimum is 2 in their junior year. But if you know your 10th grader right now, maybe you are having a conversation, how many elective credits are you going to get this year? And they tell you 2, well, then they really should be looking at doing some summer dual credit. Again, I don't force students to take classes. I talk to them about what is recommended. But I also don't want to pile on a bunch of classes just for the sake of taking classes. I want students to be thoughtful about what is going to work for them as an individual and what their interest is. But we have had many current 10th graders who started off, when we check all their stuff at the beginning of registration, January, February, and all that, they have 4, or they say they're going to take classes over the summer or whatever it is. And then when we get into the fall, then that first 2 weeks, they're dropping classes because they have obligations outside of school and this and that. And then I start getting concerned about their graduation progress at that point. So just wanted to emphasize how important that 10th grade year is. And if students are not getting that 4 minimum, that we are going to really need to look at where they're going to fill in the gaps to get those elective credits. Into the 12th grade year, no minimum. It just, at that point, it's going to be how many electives do you need to still get, and how are we going to get them in a way that is meaningful for you? But again, CEC, CNM, UNM, IA, we know they automatically will be getting, if you see that business law course, basically all of our seniors are taking that now. That is a dual credit class, which earns them economic and government and 1 elective credit. So at least one of their core classes that they're required to take in 12th grade is also going to give them that elective credit. So that's good. So the summer dual credit option, just want to put it out there. A lot of our students do it just because they want to do it. But we may also be getting into a place, with the students with the needing the 30 credits, where they should strongly consider taking a course over the summer, just to make sure that they're not, overburdened in their 12th grade year, and it gives them an opportunity. The summer is actually a really great time to take a dual credit class because it's not on top of a full load of other courses. Students can really focus on it and do really well. I have some students who take 2 and 3 summer courses every year, simply because they're trying to get ahead in those general education credits that are required at college. We do have students that, not that this is an expectation, but we do have students that, graduate with 60 plus college credits. I ran into one of our graduates at UNM actually a couple weeks ago, and he had just started and he was considered a junior on campus due to the number of dual credits that transferred. So anywhere from that minimum to, you're trying to get all your general education credits out of the way, or you're trying to earn that associate. So there's a wide range in there, but students do at least need to get that minimum, and summer dual credit is a great way to do that. In CNM, they can take a class as soon as their summer after their 9th grade year. We don't do a ton of restricting of what they can take, other than, I think, some of the obvious. You can't take a yoga class. I'm not going to approve that. It has to be something that is in a career interest or in the realm of academia. Art classes are arguable for sure, because there are, you may be, going on to be an artist. And summer is also a good time to experience. Maybe you think you want to be a microbiologist, and you take your first, summer biology class, and you're like, I don't know what I was thinking. Better to get those things figured out now through dual credit than, getting into a degree and then, you know. Okay, so that's summer dual credit. Just wanted to say with the assessment requirements, that's something that has changed for both classes, 2028 and 29, that students do need to participate. It's a requirement to graduate that they, and that's never a problem with our students. They want to do it. They have to participate in the SAT school day that we do in the summer of their junior year. And they also have to participate in the science test, the NMASR. However, there are no benchmarks anymore of a certain score that they need or anything like that. They simply need to just participate in these two tests. We just wanted to show you a little bit about the registration process, because as parents, I don't want you to feel like, this is okay. This is all on you now to figure out their credits and et cetera. And that's not what we're doing. We're informing you because we want you to be aware. And, when you're talking to your students about what their schedules are for next year and what conversations that they've had with me, you're going to keep this in mind. Our registration process, it takes a long time. We start in January. We give students their transcripts because we want them to understand what a transcript is, how many credits they have, course sequences, all of that. We give them the ECA course catalog. We give them the CEC course catalog, and we have them reviewing to look for areas of interest in, career, mathematics, etc. They take that information and then they go into a Google registration form where they actually are choosing their classes. And this is all happening in January. Then in February, I take all this information, turn it into a spreadsheet. I review all of their transcripts and I compare their transcripts against their course choices. And then if I've got those questions of, wow, I can see, you're a junior this year and you've only had 3 elective credits, and you only chose 1 this year, we're going to need to do something about that and figure out how we're going to get more classes on your schedule. So ultimately, I am helping your students with that and encouraging them to take classes so that they, stay on track for graduation. But again, I'm not forcing students to stay in classes when they're telling me they have, work schedules and they dance 5 days a week after school or whatever. I know students have other priorities outside of school, but we do have to figure out a way to be able to fit these things, to fit everything in. And then into the summertime, Ms. Thomas finally gets all of this information. It's a big process of put into the computer, and we tumble and we sort of get schedules for students, but then we realize that certain students can't take certain classes and et cetera, et cetera. So there's communication that continues to happen over the summer with Ms. Thomas contacting students and parents about conflicts and other choices. So then we get into the first 10 days of the semester, and this is the final time because students they pick up their schedules, they have their schedules, and then, maybe something has happened at that point. They signed up for, 2 AP classes and realized with football and work and whatever that maybe that's too much. So that's a time for them to change out of one of those AP classes to a regular class. This happens in the first 10 days of the semester. We've had this entire time, we've had 6 months. So after that first 10 days of the semesters, students are locked into their classes. They've had time to review their syllabus. It's like none of this has come as a surprise. So we do fully expect that after those 10 days, whatever classes students are in, they're staying in for the rest of the school year. The only thing they may do at that point is potentially add additional classes. So that's kind of the big information about graduation requirements and registration process, how we help your students, how students help themselves. And we just wanted to remind you, and we're hoping that, we've got 30 of you here tonight, which is really wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. I just admitted someone else here. 30, 31 should be 31. But that you got this information because you read a Synergy email. We're never going to send you junk just to say hey and whatever. Anything that you get from us in a Synergy email or a Gmail or a phone call from us is going to be about something like this, which I think is really, really pertinent information for us all to be able to work together as a community to make sure that your students are having just a really successful academic experience and not feeling, stressed out about what they're trying to accomplish. So emails, newsletters, we have monthly newsletters that come out. That has a ton of wonderful information in it. And we do have platforms. Hopefully you've heard of the grade level Google Classrooms by now. Each class has a grade level. Usually, seniors, we're blowing that one up. I put stuff in there every day with scholarship information and all that. Juniors, some information down to the class of 2029. We don't have too much going on in there as of yet, but there will be more information being put in there. That is the main source of communication from me as I get stuff from all over the district, wherever, for student opportunities, for scholarships, internships, study abroad, all of that. I put all of that into the Google Classroom. So it is a good idea every now and then to sit down with your student and ask them to pull up their Google Classroom and just look through the announcements, because there's going to be a ton of really great stuff in there. We also ask you to join our booster club so you can, be a part of the fun and help create and, stay updated on events in school news. And then, of course, you guys are great at this you're all, I think, great advocates for your students. And we love that you do call and email us on a regular basis. It's very helpful to work as a team. Upcoming events. The only thing I could really think of that was really pertinent is that I am going to have a dual credit workshop in November, probably the end of November. I'm going to have someone come out from C&M. And if your student hasn't registered yet for C&M, maybe a transfer student, or your student did it in the 9th grade but hasn't taken a class in a while, they actually have to readmit to C&M. So they would also want to come to this workshop. So when I get the date set, we'll be putting that out in the November newsletter. I'll post it in the Google Classroom, and I'll probably send an email home. So, questions?
We've got a couple of questions that have landed in the chat, Ms. Falds. What I'll do is I'll read them in the order received, and you can answer them. I can help. And then if folks have further questions, they can just unmute and ask. So Tammy Ortega asked to confirm most dual credit classes are worth 3 college credits and 1 high school credit.
That is true, and that is the ratio, that it's 3 college credit hours equals 1 high school elective. If you break it down, that's 0.33. So what sometimes happens, you'll see if students take French or Spanish, because those are 4 credits, your students will end up getting 1.33 elective credits for that. So, but yeah, that's the general rule. 3 to 4 college credits will equal 1 or 1.33 high school elective credits.
Ms. Peterson asked, for current freshmen, will they have additional options upcoming next spring semester? So upcoming next semester for spring semester. Ms. Peterson, if you're still on the call, can you clarify, are you talking about elective options?
And you might be muted.
Okay, we can always come back.
Can you
There
hear
she
me
is.
now?
Hi. Yeah,
we hear you.
Sorry, that took me a sec to find the mute button, and I apologize.
Okay.
I was just curious if there were for our ninth graders who, you know, have this new slightly increased requirement. And I'm new at the school, so I was just wondering if they had some elective options that were open to them then coming up this spring, because it kind of seemed like their coursework was pretty much set. And so I just was kind of curious if this opened up any options for them.
It's a good question. And it also reminds me to remind you all as parents and as students too, that students do have options of taking ECA electives too. We have student government, which rocks, and we have a yearbook, we have esports, and we have mock trial. So any of those too, if students are interested in maybe want to join in the second semester, that they would be able to do that as well. And those are just ECA electives. That's 4 different choices right there. As far as CEC goes for ninth graders, they are more limited in options at CEC, especially for just second semester. The only thing that I can think of right off the top of my head is we do have a really great course. It's an online financial services class that happens both in the fall and the spring. And it's taught by, a C&M instructor who also works at Nusenda Bank. So it's a really interesting, I've had a lot of positive feedback where students are learning about banking and finance and such. But that class also is actually a step for students then, if they're chosen by Nusenda, they interview and stuff, and they can actually go into an internship in Nusenda where they get college credit, elective credit, and they also actually work part-time at Nusenda for like $20 an hour. So that is a class that is open to ninth graders, not the internship part, but the first class, the career financial class. Students can add that for the spring. The other thing that students do have the option of doing, they've gotten their feet wet with taking the YFEX class in the ninth grade. So they can add an additional C&M class, like directly with C&M, if they, choose to. Typically, students are doing distance learning classes because, trying to get to C&M at a certain time or whatever could be difficult. But students do have that option as well, to maybe take an art class. We have several students that are like on a welding path there right now that are taking welding classes during the year and in the summer and such. So yes, there are options for students to add classes in the spring if they would like to do that.
All right, we've got a few more questions to get through. It's working real well. If folks have additional questions, to drop those in the chat. Tammy Ortega asked, how do we join our students' Google Classroom, their grade level, what we call their cohort Google Classroom?
I don't think Google Classroom has really gotten that together yet. I think all parents can get from that is like notifications. You can join, and as far as I know, we do invite all the parents. I can go back and look at that again because there is a place to invite all parents. to make sure, or I can like resend invites so that you kind of have a heads up to look for that. And if anything, you will get notifications that, Miss Falls has put in an announcement or whatever. I don't know if they've quite gotten it together where you can just log in and see stuff yourself, but you will get the notifications and then you can, ask your student to log in.
All right, our next question from Anna Waller. Can you verify it is 30 credits to graduate and 14 college credits required by ECA? So a little clarification there.
Sure. So the 14 elective credits so that's kind of an umbrella. And then there are certain requirements for some of those elective credits. 2 of those elective credits need to be a foreign language at our school. That can be French, Spanish, it can be dual credit, it can be non-dual credit, because our Japanese and Chinese are amazing programs, but they're not dual credit. The Japanese is not, and German is not. Chinese actually is through UNM. Or students could take, 2 classes of Portuguese or sign language directly at CNM and earn dual credit and the foreign language requirement. So they need 2 foreign language, and then they need 6, a combination of 6 only, not 14. A combination of 6, either AP or dual credit. They could have all 6 AP, they could have all 6 dual credit, they could have 3 and 3, however it works, but 6 of those elective credits, and that can be including the 2 foreign language, need to be AP or dual credit. So 6 of those 14 need to be that. Other than that, students are, if they want to take, cosmetology and, whatever, the APD course, EMT course, whatever, it doesn't matter as long as they're meeting that 6. So it's 14 overall, 2 need to be foreign language, and out of all of them, 6 total need to be a combination of AP and dual credit. I think you're muted, Diane.
Yep, sorry about that. Next question, is the CEC financial class elective different than the one the freshmen are taking in the spring?
Yes, it is. They're taking what's called the first college experience. That is a different class through CNM, which we don't offer at CEC. The class that I'm talking about is the Financial Services and Career Exploration. That is the class that's offered through CEC, and it's a completely separate course with a separate curriculum.
All right, we've got one more question in the chat. The CNM elective options are reviewed with 9th graders in January or end of spring for summer. So it looks like the question is regarding options for CNM summer courses. Are those reviewed with 9th graders in January, or are those reviewed with 9th graders at the end of the spring? Or should we be helping our kiddos look for those options on their own?
Yeah, kind of more of what we do is, because there is a lot of classes at CNM, and there's not really a limit of, at UNM, we have a set limit of classes that students can take. And so we actually have to, check that list, that approved list. But at CNM, students can take any class. What we go over with them is, because you want to take microbiology doesn't mean you're going to take microbiology, because microbiology probably has a prerequisite that you always have to start with those prerequisite courses. So kind of do a breakdown of that. And I do offer, and we had one last year, a dual credit workshop where we kind of go over all of this information. And unfortunately, I had like 8 people And it was really, really great information and great presentation, of which then I did share out. And I'll do that presentation again this year, because I think it's really important for students and parents to understand the ins and outs of dual credit. We aren't going to go over like what your course options are, but we're going to direct you to, the C&M course catalog for you to be able to look through and read and find courses that you like, or programs that you like, and then direct you to the prerequisites for this course, which you would need to take first.
All right. And we also do include reminders in our spring family newsletters as we get closer to summer, to remind students and families to begin capitalizing on the conversations we have had going as far back as January, when we do pre-registration, and there's a through line all through the spring with our events to keep our students thinking about some of those summer options. Okie doke. It looks like we had one more question pop up in the chat. How does the career pathway requirement work if the kids have preferences outside of the categories you posted, but there is no, quote, pathway? And I'm happy to tackle this one. I'm going to loop back to what Ms. Falds was saying when we were looking at that pathway list, that chart that we have of our current CEC-based pathway courses. That's how we organize a lot of those electives, but we do have additional electives at CEC that don't fall into some of those particular established pathways, but they may qualify. We're still waiting to hear whether our world language sequence will qualify for that as well. And then, of course, there are always the options to take dual credit coursework at C&M, UNM, or IAIA that fit with students' particular college and career interests. And so we continue to work with our district as they navigate what that looks like for APS, as the state continues to hash out some of those finer details. So some of that we may have to tackle on a case-by-case basis, but like I said, we're hoping that the vast majority of that is fully articulated and fleshed out here in the next couple of months, and the district will have that laid out for us.
Yeah, like if, students want to take, again, welding, because I just think that's the coolest program. I see some of the things they make and how much money they make when they leave that program. If students want to take, welding 1, welding 2, that definitely falls under, CTE. They still have autos over at C&M. The only drawback with some of those courses is getting students there, because most of those are going to be face-to-face courses. But yeah, there are other options outside of what we listed.
Right. So we've got another question here. A couple more. The career pathway requirement is only relevant for class of 2029. And I did drop some clarification into the chat, because our class of 2028 are required to take one career pathway course. And generally speaking, if they've taken a class at CEC, they've satisfied that requirement. So they are okay. And our class of 2029 are required to take those 2 career pathway courses and/or those other options that we're still exploring with our district leadership, including the world language option.
Yeah, we've never had any issue, as I review transcripts, that career requirement for, the class of 26, 27, 28. It's never an issue. It's always filled. That bucket's always filled.
All right. Well, that does it for questions in the chat. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Ms. Faltz, thank you so much for putting all of this information together. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody. Appreciate you carving out this time to learn a little bit more and go over all of this information with us. I'll hang out here for just another minute or so if folks have other questions. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you so much for being here. Be sure to check your email for our October newsletter that's dropping tomorrow.
And just remember, like, we're not asking you to figure out your students' schedules for next year. Don't worry about that. Like, you know, to potentially add some classes in the spring. Yeah, we can talk about that. Students can email me. We could set up meetings, whatever we need to do. But this process will start in January, and you having this meeting, you're going to be so much more informed about, like, okay, what it is that they need to do, and maybe having a few more conversations with them about what they're doing and how many electives they're signing up for. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. And we hope this has been useful.
Thanks so much, everybody. Sophie, I saw you raised a hand, so I'll hang out for a little bit if you'd like to chat. You can go ahead and unmute if you'd like.